Hello, and welcome to the Prepper Ninja Podcast, Episode 1, your source for survival, prepper, and back-to-basics information. I'm Greg, the Prepper Ninja, and you can find more about us and more of our podcasts at theprepperninja.com. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the Black Belt Mastery Center of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, a source for life skills training, martial arts, and survival. Today, we're broadcasting from the underground bunker here in the Ozarks, where we are hunkered down and dealing with the lock-in from the coronavirus. It's an amazing world out there to see how everybody has changed everything that they have to do on a daily basis and are dealing with things that are different than what they thought. Today we're going to talk about the survival mindset. The survival mindset is important because over the course of time in these communities, we have had we've been called survivalists, survivors, preppers, and a variety of other things that have been complimentary and less than complimentary. Some people think we're just conspiracy theorist nuts who are waiting for everything to crash. And well, this spring, we got to see everything crash. Nice and fun. The thing is, even in the prepper and survival community, things didn't turn out kind of the way everybody thought it was, because people stockpiled food and weapons and ammo and gardened for themselves and raised chickens and this and that. But a big part of the fact is that you're still humans and you're still social, and having to socially distance and change your behavior on how much you see and interact with other people, it goes against a lot of the psychological effects of comfort from having that culture that's left and a society that you created even after a crash. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things, and the definitions of survivalist actually, and prepper are the first things that we're going to talk about. The definition of these, I'm just going to quote some things from two different sources. One's from Quora.com. Somebody wrote here, to me, a survivalist is someone who has mastered the skills necessary to survive in whatever kind of scenario in which they find themselves. A prepper is one who has the forethought to stockpile the appropriate supplies to survive in a situation where their normal supply chain has been cut off or compromised. That speaks to the behavior of those two different types and how they view themselves and what they're doing. The second definition I want to give you is from a site called survivalsullivan.com. It's a pretty good, it's an individual viewpoint that you may or may not agree with, but it's a pretty good source for realistic thinking. Now, their definition on there is, if you can get dropped off in the middle of nowhere and survive with only what is inside your everyday carry bag, then you're a survivalist. If your long-term survival requires making it to your bug-in or bug-out location, then you're a prepper. What does that mean? What is a survivalist? What is a prepper? In essence, a survivalist is someone who builds themselves. They learn skills. Now, this, in the very obvious outside look in on their lives, may include gun skills and martial arts skills and bushcraft skills. And all of these things are going to be discussed in this podcast. Not the one today specifically, but as we go along. And we're going to discuss all the little elements that build this up. But basically, what they're doing as a survivalist is learning to be self-sufficient people. You're building more skills than you are things. Now, a prepper is someone who's preparing. They have a stockpile of food or ammo, or in the case of the coronavirus and what we saw in the stores, maybe they have a stockpile of toilet paper. So we've learned that in the event of a natural emergency, it's going to be an amazingly quick thing for the shelves in the store to just be emptied. We got to go in and see that the toilet paper and paper towels and then cleaning supplies and disinfectants, these sort of things, were entirely stripped from the shelves within just the first few days of the announcement of lockdowns and quarantines and things of that nature. So the people that did not prepare are the ones who went out and panicked and stripped everything down and we're dealing with things in that context. These are the things that are going to happen. To be honest with you, if you live in the South, you realize that anytime they say, oh, there's going to be a snow in the winter, it's mandatory. It seems to be part of the mentality of the South. Everyone has to go to the supermarket and buy all the milk, the bread, and paper supplies because it's going to snow. And I don't know what they're doing and living off of milk and bread during a snow, but that's a thing that happens. And if you live in the South, you realize that really is a thing. So you're going to find this mentality is built into people's psyche that they have to realize, oh no, I have to have this comfort zone. I have to be prepared right now. And so a survivalist is someone who builds in that comfort zone in everyday life. When somebody says, oh my God, there's an emergency, they're like, okay, got this. And a prepper, on the other hand, is someone who is prepared with the stockpiles and supplies, and they say, oh, there's going to be an emergency, and they're like, okay, got this. So it's not like one is better than the other. These are just two mindsets that are sometimes complementary. You'll find a lot of people in these communities that actually build both and build them quite well. They go in for building themselves with the proper skills and awareness and tactical thinking. And don't misunderstand me when I say tactical thinking. I'm not talking about conflict with other people specifically, although that is a part of tactical thinking. Tactical thinking is where do I place myself in the event of adversity from the outside. Now that adversity from the outside could be a tornado. It could be a hurricane. It could be a flood. It could be in the midst of lockdown and people running out of toilet paper, raiders coming into your house. This is the first things that people think about when they think about survivalist, is somebody holding off the people trying to raid their house for toilet paper with their automatic rifle. So that's just the skin or surface of it. Now we're going to talk about the meat and bones as we go through this series of podcasts. We're going to talk about strategic thought. How do you place yourself in a position to be better prepared or prepped to survive as a survivalist? Both of these viewpoints are very valid and very important. So with the coronavirus, everybody right now is dealing with the psychology of social engineering themselves into comfort without other people interacting on a regular basis. They don't get to go out to a club, a bar, a restaurant, a concert, an event. And so they're having to find ways to do this at a distance. Now, if you're quarantined in at home, there's a lot of folks who are just spending their time staring down at their phones, doing their own thing on Facebook and YouTube and all of those sort of things. But there are some that are being a little bit old-fashioned, trying to reintegrate the family and do stuff together. Maybe they're sitting around the table doing board games at night, or integrating both. It's possible that they have a family movie night, they have a board game night, and then there's times that everybody just goes their own separate ways and stares at their phones like they do on a normal basis these days. And this gives people more of an opportunity to really work together and get to know each other on a more regular basis. And I know right now there's a lot of people that are stuck in with people who they have spent time with, maybe years with, and now they're 24/7 getting to know them, and I'm afraid that there's probably going to be a lot of divorce lawyers that are making a lot of money after this quarantine stuff quits. The truth of the matter is, how you deal with things is entirely up to you. You cannot blame anyone else for something that happens to you. You are responsible for the way you react to that, not the way that other people act. And so that's the heart of strategic thinking and awareness that we need to build as we're working on being preppers or survivalists. So we're going to take a look at that. What can you do? Yeah, that was a long silence. But the question is, what can you do? At this point, you may actually stop and replay that and look at it, and it was still silence. But if you can fill in the question yourself, what can I do about what? What do you mean? What can I do about? Well, the question can be plugged in like a little module into anything. What can you do about a tornado coming toward you? Well, you don't have time to prepare that. You have time to react. But what's your reaction? That is your responsibility. Do you have a cellar? Okay, that would have been the prepper's response. He prepped in advance. He made sure he had a cellar, maybe a dug-in root cellar in the yard, maybe a basement, maybe a strong room. Okay, so that's prepped. Survivalist. Okay, now I don't have any of those because I was not a prepper. I didn't prep, but I'm a survivalist. Do I know? Okay, ground floor, farthest from windows, most interior place in the house, smallest room, most walls. Most likely, a bathroom. That's the most common place to fit all of those bills. If you have a basement, do that. Now, I've heard a lot of comedy and that sort of stuff about the recommendation if you live in a trailer, go outside and get into a ditch. That sort of stuff, because there's no attachment of the trailer to. I mean, I'm not going to go into giving you advice here, but there's really just not a good place in a trailer. There's nothing attached to anything. It's a little sardine can that's ready to be picked up and crushed. That's unfortunate. That means that you have to plan in advance and know where you're going to be in the event of a severe thunderstorm, tornado, that sort of stuff. So your response to that isn't to blame the tornado. And the reason I started with natural disasters is because they're classified a lot as an act of God or out of your hands or that sort of stuff. Now, if someone attacks you, it's his fault. Not entirely. Now, that's not going to be a popular statement with a lot of people, but you have to take some responsibility for being where you were, being someone who looked like a victim to him, not seeing the possibility of an attack coming, not being aware of your surroundings. There's just such a long list here. And I'm not saying it's your fault and you were asking to be attacked. I'm saying that you have a responsibility to react to things that happen to you that are beyond your control, and a responsibility to plan for and be aware of the things that are out there that you can't control, so you can control you preemptively and proactively. So as we go through this whole quarantine situation, how many people thought about having masks? How many people thought about having gloves? Well, that's not prepper supplies. No. As a matter of fact, it is. I looked into my car kit, which is a small car go bag. And we'll discuss those sort of things in another podcast about bug in, bug out bags, that sort of thing. But I looked into my little car kit, and what it is it's a semi-hard shell Coleman first aid kit that is big enough that I could put other things in with it. And as I was rearranging things in some free time the other day, I opened that up and I realized that in there, with everything else, was respirator filters, masks, gloves, chemically resistant gloves for handling hazardous materials, and disinfectants and decontaminant cleaners. And I put that in there years ago and have just maintained the age refilling of these particular items. And so that's one of the first things that I wanted to talk about here, was because so many people are having to go to YouTube now and learn how to take filter material, build it into a folded bandana mask with little scrunchy hair ties and that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You should always have those skills. You should build those as often as you can. And since they're appropriate and timely now, they're available for you to see. So go out, learn, watch these videos. They're great stuff. But what are you doing for tomorrow? What are you planning for next week? What are you planning for next month? And what are you planning for next year? You have to be a strategic thinker and think about what's going on in your life that you can control, and how you can react to things that you know you can't control. You can't control that burglar who breaks in at 3 a.m. and you stumble out of the bedroom hearing a noise and see him with his TV on your shoulder and a gun in his hand. Well, you know how you'd react to that. Well, I've got a gun. I would. Everybody has the I woulds. Well, what if at 3 a.m. you hear your roof leaving because of that tornado? Or you realize that when you get up in the middle of the night, your feet hit the ground and your ankle deep in water. You're in a flood. Well, you should have some sort of contingency plan for that. So that's the prepper side. The preparedness also should lead into being a survivalist, because you should prepare by building your essential skills. Now, building masks right now is a good essential skill, and that's one of the things that we do in our spare time here, working less and having a little bit more free time to do things, helping out other people, building masks, setting things up so that they can have some, working out ways that we can distribute gloves, finding different ways. For example, if you don't have an availability to have gloves on a regular basis, go to the dollar store, go to Dollar Tree or Walmart or whatever you have close by, and get the little bags, the little rolled up bags for the dog walkers, or just the little doggy do bags where you pick up the dog crap. If you take one of those off and slide it over your hand, you can use it as a temporary impromptu glove for opening doorknobs, touching things that other people touch on a regular basis. Slide one on your hand when you're at the checkout and you have to push that little keypad to put your credit card in that 3,000 other people have touched today. Think about things that can substitute for the things that are there. Now, the dog walker's bags are a great little substitute one-use glove. You can't sit there and type in them. If you're doing something, let's say you're an IT professional who has to work on other people's computers, you need to use gloves when you touch their keyboard and mouse. And then one-time use, take them off, don't touch anything else with them, move on. And you've got to be strategic about this and how you deal with stuff. So moving forward, we're going to be able to be better people with better planning and strategic thought. Preppers and survivalists both. I hope you all have a marvelous day, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Prepper Ninja. Remember, you can find more of our podcasts at theprepperninja.com. Look for us on YouTube, and you may find some surprises in video. Everyone stay safe and think.